In class, the teachers had the students pass back handouts for tomorrow's home ec cooking class, and our protagonist, 15-year-old Okuto Nakamura, who had just entered Hoshimi High this spring as a freshman, was frantically unfocused on class, and more focused on the boy he had a crush on. The first day he saw Hirose was at the opening day ceremony. Nakamura stood slumped and tired as the principal gave the welcoming speech, until he saw Hirose's light, curly, chestnut hair, big, round, gleaming eyes, and he marveled over Hirose's slightly tanned skin, as well as his expressions that changed every second. But more than anything else, Hirose's wonderful smile. It was a shock he'd never had before. Definitely love at first sight. Oh, oh. What is it? Dang. Oh, so he fell into the love hole. Love at first sight. Ah, guys, love at first sight. I remember stuff like that. Yeah. The childish descriptions. Oh, his light curly hair, big around gleaming eyes, slightly tan skin. These are definitely the childish descriptions of an angsty teenager. A month had passed since then. No progress had been made. They weren't even friends yet. In fact, they haven't even spoken to each other once. He'd been waiting for a chance to talk to Hirose since the first day, but he hadn't even gotten the chance to look him in the eye. He couldn't take it any longer. Today, he definitely talked to Hirose. At the end of class, Nakamura thought about how he simulated every possible conversation in his head since the first day of school. He went up to Hirose, asking, "How are you this fine day? Why don't we go to a fancy cafe together?" Except that didn't happen. It was just his imagination. He inched his way over, but before he could squeak out a word, his brain overloaded at the sight of the eraser. He didn't calculate for this. He sighed after Hirose picked it up and suddenly questioned what he was so scared of. It wasn't that different from what he had in his head. Bro is overthinking too much. First romance, just think less and get it over with. Heading towards Hirose, he took a sharp turn as his crush began to stretch. Then sat depressed at the desk over. He just couldn't get it done. With Hirose's friends calling him ready to leave, Nakamura felt a sense of urgency. He slapped his own cheeks, got up, and inched closer and closer. Hirose stood up abruptly, having finished his work. He turned back to look at Nakamura with a quizzicalness, and our MC got flustered and ran away. He hid his head in the book cubbies, thinking about how whenever he saw Hirose's face, his head went blank. But now reflecting over the fact their eyes met for the first time, he thought Hirose was so cute. He watched his crush leave, and suddenly, Hirose's handkerchief fell out. Nakamura, of course, imagined a whole scenario where he'd give it back to him in a charming, romantic fashion. He thought this was his chance. Divine inspiration, the natural starting point for a relationship. He turned to stone though, with a female classmate going to pick it up. He hurried, he rushed, slamming it down with an overly dramatic stomp. His classmates were appalled, even more so as he picked up the stepped-on handkerchief and presented it to Hirose. Returning home, he ran straight to his room and began to scream. He thought for sure Hirose hated him now. He cried to his pet octopus Ichan, who raised his tentacle to the glass. With this, Nakamura was determined. It was too early to give up. High school life just started. They'd have more opportunities to talk. We moved to cooking class. Today, they'd be making cucumber salad, miso soup, and grilled fish. Nakamura would eavesdrop to listen in on Hirose's friends, mentioning that, with him missing, they couldn't finish making the miso soup. Hirose hurried in late, and Nakamura began to gush over his sweaty handsomeness. He was late because he had to grab his apron. Putting it on, Nakamura fell back. He was grateful to see how cute Hirose was in his apron. He then had imaginations as the two of them being newlyweds. Hirose would be up early telling him good morning, giving him his coffee, then offering him toast or rice for the day. But with Nakamura saying, "I think I'll have you first, Hirose," that was a little too much. Getting too lost in the sauce, his performance in cooking class went horribly bad. Everything went wrong. He still hadn't managed to talk to Hirose yet, and he was slowing everybody down. He also had difficulty getting closer with Hirose's two buddies always next to him. The teacher would suddenly get called to have a word with another, so she told all the students to stop and only do things that didn't require fire or knives. Hirose spotted something he hadn't expected. Live octopuses! Nakamura rushed over thinking they were so cute, but none of the students remembered hearing anything about cooking octopus today. He got irritated with the students being creeped out and unable to see how cute they were. Picking one up, he thought about how the common octopus was smart and strong, and the moms loved their kids. But now wondered if he totally creeped out Hirose. Looking back, he could see Hirose was staring, and now thinking he might have freaked him out. Much to his surprise, Hirose would also pick up an octopus and enjoy the slippery feel of the tentacles touching him. Apparently, they cut this scene from the manga, and people on Twitter are mad about it. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty impressed by the art detail. Remembering that they might have to cook them, Hirose said they should help the octopuses escape. He supposed they'd just have to hide them until school was over. Seeing Hirose turn the faucet to keep them hydrated, Nakamura stopped him because fresh water was deadly for these sea creatures. The students then speculated on what to do, with the fear impending of the idea of the teacher returning ready to chop them up. Another teacher would come in and eventually clear up this misunderstanding. These creatures were here for observation in class. All the teachers had been searching for them, and he was surprised they ended up here. Class continued, and Nakamura was disappointed with another day going by and no progress made talking to his crush. Then got surprised because Hirose would approach him, asking what he was doing in the corner. Hirose thanked Nakamura. Because of him, the octopuses survived. Nakamura stood wide-eyed as Hirose clamored about touching an octopus for the first time. He enjoyed the feeling of their suctions on his skin and laughed over the marks left over. Nakamura was about to ask him to be his friend, but Hirose would get distracted by another octopus in the sink. He'd pick it up, and unfortunately, it'd spray Nakamura in the face with ink. This gave Hirose a laugh. Even though he wasn't able to make any progress, Nakamura was happy to be a little closer, accepting the fact he was shy, gay, and in love with Aiki Hirose. Just like I'd be in love with you liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That's right, guys. We're going full swing with the gay stuff on this channel, and occasionally other things I can't cover on main. I'm building up the boy love videos here, so you better subscribe if you want more. Watching without a YouTube account? You better make one and subscribe to me anyway, or else boy love is over. So come on, hit that subscribe and I'll be your guy. Not a gay one though. While taking notes, Nakamura went over another set of monologuing internally, describing himself as shy and gay and in love with Hirose. He's gonna keep doing this, so of course, I'ma skip it moving forward. He apparently reads boy love manga every night and studies them as gospel on how he can have his own romance. Guys, this is bad advice. Do not get all your experience from manga and anime. Learn maybe from your parents if you're young, but mostly trial by fire. He describes his love guide BL manga, Lovable Lunches, a thrilling rom-com between the passionate, reliable Makunochi and Taku, who gradually comes to terms with his feelings. In the last volume, Makunochi admits his feelings. Nakamura wanted to be as assertive as him. He thought Taku was cute and reminded him of Hirose. He was being so loud and annoying, his sister had to come in to tell him to shut up. At school, the female classmates were talking about the latest anime based on a shonen manga. It's about a bodyguard who gets saved by the heroine, and he apparently has a coworker slash rival who's all cool and handsome. So this girl started looking at them in a BL way? Oh my god, is this my viewers again? No, it's like Deku and Bakugo all over again. Hifumi noticed a cockroach, and the girls began screaming and running away. However, how it's depicted is the little cockroach being happy and joyful, smiling and telling everyone it's come to visit. Personally, I've never seen one in real life, so are they this cute? Nakamura finally arrived, and one of the girls shook him, telling him to do something about the bug. He got thrown into it, and he couldn't believe this. He was ignored most of the time, so why now? He'd then hear Hirose's greeting, and his imagination played back to the manga, where Maku saves Taku from the Housefly King. He's seen this scenario in Lovable Lunches, and now felt all his BL reading has paid off. He hoped Hirose would see how cool he was, and tell him to come to his place to deal with his cockroaches. He then folded up one of his notebooks, and approached the little bug. Although he didn't like killing bugs for no reason, it hopped on. His plan was to keep it alive and get it outside. He turned back, hoping to impress his crush, and Hirose stared in awe. However, the little bug saw a tunnel and decided to climb into Nakamura's sleeve. Everyone freaked out and backed away. He couldn't move, feeling it crawl on his back and his stomach. Hirose rushed in and shoved his hand into Nakamura's clothes. He could feel Hirose's small, strong hands, sweat and warmth, until he touched something else. This is so gay. Hirose eventually pulled out the cockroach victoriously. He then held his hand out the window, and the bug happily flew away. He turned back to see a tear fall from Nakamura's eye. Our main character was elated, having been touched by Hirose, and thankful for the cockroach. For a while after that, people kept their distance though. During math class, instead of paying attention, Nakamura was studying more of his favorite BL manga, plotting his next move to impress Hirose. He considered acting more confident, and his teacher would whack him to pay attention. Nakamura was glad at least his teacher didn't notice he was reading BL in class. He decided to read it while he ate, for practice to make himself feel better. This particular chapter, Makunochi was trying to feed Taku, but he got rejected. Taku had said at this point he liked him, but didn't know what that really entailed. That's when Maku wiped the food off Taku's mouth and said, "Don't worry, I'll make sure you know exactly what it means." He then presented more food face to face, adding, "This is my special, love-filled, super sweet tamagoyaki. First, taste this." Taku swallowed and said it was delicious. Nakamura was full, both from eating and the heart now. He'd love to have lunch with Hirose someday, like in the manga. They could feed each other. He imagined having Hirose say, "Ah," and asking him, "How's my special octo-wiener?" Hirose would then ask Nakamura if they could put octo-wieners in each other's mouths every day. Okay, he didn't say that, but I just felt I had to. Walking in the hall, Nakamura tripped over a bucket and fell. Who came to check on him? Hirose, of course. Nakamura freaked out, but then quickly began to seem like he was alright. Hearing Hirose was worried about him, Nakamura thought his kindness was on another level. Hirose would point to something at Nakamura's feet. It was lovable lunches. Nakamura began to sweat profusely, and with him denying it was his, Hirose became skeptical, seeing he denied so quickly. However, he would take it to the class, wanting to return it to its proper owner. He really stood in front of everyone and asked. Wow, I'd be pretty embarrassed if I was Nakamura for sure. The boys started joking, realizing it was a BL book, and now Nakamura was having flashbacks. There was a time right after swim class in elementary school. The teacher pulled out his underwear since it was left in the locker rooms. The boys in front of Nakamura teased because whoever it was wasn't wearing any. Back then, all he could do was panic. But since growing up, he knew exactly what to do at times like these. He made his way to his desk and played dumb. The day ended with zero progress made again. He wondered if he was getting further away from his crush. And now his manga was gone too. He headed into the teacher's office to get a new form for his bike, and found Kaoru-sensei reading his book. Apparently, Kaoru thought it was pretty good. He was sure whoever it was probably too embarrassed to get it, considering its strange premise. But he figured exactly what I've been thinking the entire time. The owner of this book is naive about love. Nakamura shrank further and got his bike form. On his way home, he'd stop by the bookstore to get another copy of Lovable Lunches. And of course, he'd somehow come across Hirose greeting him. Hirose pondered on it a bit, but eventually remembered his name, calling him Cockroach Boy Nakamura. The guy who stepped on his handkerchief and had an octopus spit ink at him, Nakamura. He remembered him because it was so funny. Despite Nakamura's embarrassment, Hirose greeted him kindly, and now they'd finally both introduced themselves to each other. Hirose would ask about the manga in Nakamura's hand, but our boy made the excuse it just fell off the shelf and he was putting it back. Hirose would ask about the section and Nakamura stammered, admitting boys love. Thinking back to the manga he saw earlier, Hirose went, so you read it too? Even though Nakamura tried to deny it. Oh my god, look at Hirose's face. So smug and goofy. Nakamura was again embarrassed, but Hirose then simply said, well, different strokes for different folks. He thought it was fine that Nakamura read this stuff. It eased Nakamura's heart. Hirose helped him realize he wasn't doing anything wrong, so there was no need to hide it. Maku would always have his head held high, surely. He'd then show Hirose the next book he was looking for. But apparently it was so bad they redacted it? Is it X-rated? Who knows? Hirose got embarrassed, saying different strokes for different folks again, and hurried out. Nakamura once again found himself in an embarrassing position. After realizing he could never be Maku, he stopped trying to learn lessons from BL. On another day at school, Nakamura's class was cleaning up the music room. Hifumi and her friends then started imagining a love triangle between Hirose and Takuchi. The BL shipping is never ending. Even when Nakamura came into view, it was like he didn't exist to them. As a 15-year-old high school student, Hifumi was shy and a fujoshi. During sketching class, Nakamoto thought the whole thing was a drag. This was until he heard Hirose would be modeling. With Hirose standing in the middle of the class, this was the perfect chance for Nakamoto to stare all he wanted. He waited so long for this. He would burn all the things he saw while sneaking glances into his mind. Hirose noticed Nakamoto staring into his soul, and that made him a bit uncomfortable. On the other hand, Nakamoto admired all his features. Hirose's eyes were so sparkly, his lashes were long, and his lips were so plump. The longer Nakamoto looked, the cuter he was. He couldn't stop drawing. Believing his drawing was the best in the class, that thought was shut down as soon as he saw Hifumi's. He couldn't help but stare at her drawing, and she felt uneasy with eyes on her. At the sound of the bell, she quickly packed up her things and left the class. Freaked out, she wondered what she could have done, but right now, getting back to class would be a relief for her. Unexpectedly, Nakamoto caught up to her, asking her name. At first, she thought he was hitting on her, but he said he was a fan and asked for her drawing. He's that down bad, huh? She gave it to Nakamoto, and he was filled with so much joy. On the other hand, Hifumi didn't know how to react to having a fan. It was obvious it made her feel good. In class, Hifumi was lost in thought. She'd freak out when her friends asked which boys she was into, but they meant which boys she'd ship together. She thought Hirose was kinda cute when she sketched. Hearing that, Masako and Yuka urged her to sketch the fantasy. Working faster than the eye could see, Hifumi satisfied their curiosity. They'd take a look at her other sketches and got curious. Seeing an image of Nakamoto, Hifumi quickly snatched away the sketchbook, feeling embarrassed. When she came clean, they teased her about her crush. Yuka said he looked like someone drew a face on a mushroom. Damn, she didn't have to be that ruthless. They just didn't get how Hifumi felt. She admired how Nakamoto's eyes were so clear and earnest when looking at them up close. Seems Nakamoto wasn't the only one in love. Oh my. Gay love triangle with straight Fujoshi. This is gonna be a mess. As he entered the class, Hifumi's friends urged her to ask him out and even give him a portrait. Of course, she was too shy. But at this rate, she'd never make any progress. With Yuka wanting to hand over the sketchbook herself, they all started fighting over it. Amidst the struggle, the sketchbook fell open right in front of Nakamoto. Seeing the sketch of him and Hirose, he ignored it and walked over to his seat. Whatever chances of love she would have had, Hifumi felt that was long gone. Surprisingly, Nakamoto approached shortly after, asking her to draw sketches of him and Hirose in his notebook. The request left her speechless. When she was done, he was moved to tears. Flipping through the pages, he didn't expect that she'd draw a whole manga. After thanking her, he left, saying they'd see each other later, and that was the perfect excuse Hifumi had to talk to him again. We turned to PE class, where Neo, Kaoru, would be stepping in for Shimada as their teacher. Instead of badminton, they'd be playing volleyball today. Kaoru was known for being strict. On the other hand, the girls would be playing badminton. Since they were having PE with the boys, Hifumi would get to see Nakamoto. When he came on for volleyball, she eagerly watched to see how good he was. Taking a stance, the girls thought they were in for a show. Except Nakamoto would receive the ball with his face and go ahead to mess up every time. Yet, Hifumi thought he looked so cool. I guess love really is blind. While cleaning up after class, Nakamoto was shocked to meet Hifumi in the storeroom. Apparently, she found a family of mice here and thought they were cute. Likewise, he shared the same sentiments and called her a nice person. Hearing those words, she was flush. That's when Hirose came in, and now Nakamoto was the one who was all flustered. Hirose saw the mice and suggested hiding them with the equipment. And while they were all lost in the cuteness, they got locked in. They'd bang on the door, screaming for help, but everyone was already gone. With no other choice, they agreed to pass the time by chatting. As time passed, the number of things they could talk about wasn't so much. An hour later, no one had come for them still. The room was getting so hot, especially for Nakamoto and Hifumi, who were both close to their crushes. They both wished they could stay here all night. Poor Hirose was completely clueless. Out of nowhere, he asked if they were crushing on anyone. They'd both immediately deny it. At night, Nakamoto woke up and found the others asleep. Who even leaves kids in school for this long? Hifumi slumped over his shoulder, and he began feeling like the king of the seas. When Hirose leaned in a bit closer, he got flustered. Then, he started trying to get closer to touch him. Being able to get a whiff of Hirose's scent made him so happy. Just when he was about to touch Hirose, Kaoru finally found him. Nakamoto hoped the teacher didn't catch him in the act. Afterwards, Kaoru would apologize to them for being careless. And it turns out, he actually did catch Nakamoto sniffing Hirose. With Otogiri offering them a ride home, the three of them got into his car. Nakamura was glad Hirose didn't notice anything. Meanwhile, from Hifumi's point of view, it looked like Nakamura and Hirose were about to kiss back then. She'd catch him staring intensely in Hirose's direction. Noticing how quiet she was, Nakamura asked if she was alright. He was glad to hear she was fine, and that gesture made her admire his kindness. On a special day, Hirose confessed to Nakamura, saying he'd always wanted to be best friends with him. Blushing hard, Nakamura couldn't believe his ears. Did Hirose actually want to be his best friend? As Hirose made it clear, they'd go frolicking in the flower fields together with so much happiness. As if this was just Nakamura going over the manga Hifumi drew of him and Hirose. Shedding tears, he couldn't get over how beautiful the story was. His sister would then barge into his room, letting him know breakfast was ready. On his way to school, Nakamura came across two guys who were talking about their due math homework. They seemed like good friends. He began daydreaming of him and Hirose in that situation. Speaking of good friends, according to Lovable Lunches, the main characters hung out together and slept over at each other's houses. Nakamura started fantasizing about what a sleepover with Hirose would look like. With only one futon, they'd have to share, and he was gushing at the thought of it. To his surprise, Hirose came along, greeting him. Nakamura's heart skipped a beat. Hirose striking up a conversation with him was too good to be true. Hearing that he cycled from Dangogaoka, Umori Tsukasa mentioned they had good Japanese sweet shops. Hirose said that when he came over to his place. Umori would then introduce himself to Nakamura. Though they were in the same class, this was their first time talking. Hearing that Umori and Hirose walked to school together left Nakamura devastated. To make things worse, they even lived close to each other. Nakamura's heartbreak was yet to stop. Apparently, Hirose and Umori had known each other since grade school. They were basically childhood friends. Seeing Hirose put his hands around Umori, Nakamura desperately wanted to tag in. Rather than take Omori's place, Nakamura reasoned he could use him to learn more about Hirose. On their way, Hirose stopped as he came across an octopus tank. Then, he recalled that Nakamura liked him. The fact that Hirose recalled made him flush. Then, Nakamura would start rambling on about why he liked octopuses. He suddenly stopped, remembering how he creeped out the other kids in his younger days. Because of that, he claimed he didn't like octopuses that much. Since they were about to be late, Hirose and Umori ran off to make it in time for school. Shortly after, Nakamura zoomed past two girls. Screaming with tears in his eyes, he felt he had ruined the moment Hirose came to talk to him, and now he was the world's biggest idiot. Sobbing and in despair, he drew in the sand. Then, Reiko approached him. Taking one glance at that sinister-looking drawing, she acknowledged his talent. She asked him to join the art club. Thinking she was a weirdo, Nakamura completely ignored her and went about his business. However, Reiko wouldn't back down so easily. She recognized his talent and wanted him to help. As the club president, she believed in his potential. He'd politely turn her down because he wanted to decide for himself which club to join. She teased him, saying he'd never learned the art club's unbelievable secret, and she went ahead to spill it. There was a city art contest that had been held for years. The superstition was that if you entered the contest, whatever you drew would become real. Nakamura said it was ridiculous, but Reiko could see curiosity written all over him. It was said the contest was famous for making dreams come true, one after another. Right now, the art club had room for one more person to enter the contest. Reiko would entice Nakamura more, letting him know that if he were to create a drawing about love, it might come true. Desperate to win Hirose's heart, Nakamura agreed to join. While filling the form, he'd remove a sticker, revealing it wasn't actually the art club, but an occult and horror club. Thanks to that, he completely lost interest. But desperate, Reiko latched on to Nakamura, begging if her club didn't get members, they'd be disbanded. He didn't get why she wanted him in particular. So, she went on a ramble about why he'd be perfect for the club. Her club studied everything involving the occult, superstitions, curses, and horror film analysis for her specialty. With them being one person short for the seance they wanted to hold, she was desperate to get Nakamura in. She'd give him a vial with red liquid. It totally looked like blood, but Reiko called it a miraculous, magic, holy water that would bring him good luck. Refusing to take it back, she ran off, hoping he'd eventually agree to join. In class, Nakamura stared at the ominous red vial. Opening it up, it had an awful smell. All he could think of was how to dispose of it. Then again, he wondered if he'd be cursed if he threw it away. Hirose then came over, handing him a piece of candy. He felt sorry for ditching him earlier on. Nakamura was freaking out staring at it. He swore to make it his family treasure. Looking back at the so-called magic holy water, he wondered if this good fortune was truly because of it. From that moment, he'd have quite a number of encounters with Hirose. Could the holy water actually be working, or was it all coincidence? The only way he'd believe it was if he and Hirose walked home together like best buds. Fortune would smile upon Nakamura as Hirose walked up to him, asking if he'd like to walk home together. Hirose was tasked with delivering handouts to Sato's place, which was in Dangogaoka. Since he didn't know the area well, he was thinking Nakamura could show him the way. Of course, Nakamura would accept without a second thought. As they walked together, he was basically on cloud 9 to think he'd actually be walking home with just Hirose. Nakamura was filled with so much happiness. Nevertheless, he didn't want to think it was thanks to that holy water. Hearing Nakamura had a younger sister, Hirose was jealous, wishing he had one too. His older sister was so annoying. Nakamura told him younger sisters were annoying as well, and she came into his room to yell at him this morning. Despite being younger, she bossed him around and kicked him. She was a brat who made their parents side with her. There were so many things that pissed him off. As he caught himself rambling again, Hirose laughed at him. He thought Nakamura was funny and didn't expect him to talk much. At first, he was hesitant to talk to him, but felt relieved now. He thought Nakamura was easy to talk to. Nakamura wished time could stop so he could relish this moment forever. As they parted ways, Nakamura's heart burst with so much emotion. He felt like he could die now. He'd hold on to the memories of today forever, but then be interrupted, hearing a voice coming from Hirose's direction. Hirose had somehow run into delinquents from Mad Road High. Bro, what are these JoJo-esque goons? These are high schoolers? Seeing the situation, Nakamura panicked, wondering what to do. Noticing the holy water in his jacket, he got an idea. While Hirose was being bullied, he screamed for help. Just then, Nakamura came cycling in to save his crush. But when the bullies turned around, he was nowhere to be found. So they got back to forcing Hirose to be their photography club's model. It turned out, Nakamura had fallen into the manhole behind them. He slowly rose from that abyss, blood dripping down all over his face as he threatened the bullies to stay away. Oh wow, they're referencing The Ring, one of my favorite horror movies. Scared for their lives, they ran away with their tails between their legs. Hirose would then recognize Nakamura and start laughing at him. He handed him a handkerchief to wipe himself, thanking him for the save. Later in school, Nakamura would return the empty vial to Reiko. She had heard a rumor that a zombie appeared around Dangogaoka 3 Comb. Thanks to an eyewitness's testimony, she drew a sketch. It totally looked like him. This made Reiko more eager for Nakamura to join her occult club, but he declined. However, she wasn't about to give up. She'd make him join the club soon enough. After that, Nakamura came across Hirose staring at the bulletin board. Reiko had posted that sketch of him there, making him feel embarrassed. He'd feel even worse seeing Hirose agreed that he actually looked like that. In class, Nakamura was giggling to himself as he read his plans to become Hirose's friend. He finally did it. It was too good to be true. But he actually walked home with Hirose after school. He still had stuff he had yet to cover, like eating lunch and listening to their favorite songs together. Right now, it seemed out of reach. Recalling how Hirose called him awesome, he figured they were quite close, being friends already. He was certain he had it in the bag. But seeing Takuchi walk in with his arms around Hirose, Nakamura couldn't believe his eyes. Since when were they so close? They even started touching each other, trying to see how much muscle they each had grown. And the way they were laughing together made Nakamura nearly lose his mind. Of course, it didn't stop there. During lunch, Hirose would feed Takuchi. He'd then sit on Takuchi's lap while reading manga, and this made Nakamura rip his book. This is so gay. Nakamura would then tail them outside. As he saw them hold hands, that was when the demon inside him finally burst out. He completely lost it, cursing Takuchi and vowing to make him pay for this. Every single thing he had dreamed of doing, Takuchi had taken his place. Back in class, Takuchi would insist on carrying Hirose, lifting him off his feet like a princess. While the girls laughed, Nakamura looked like he was about to end someone. Walking towards the windows, he filled the air with dust using the chalkboard eraser. Then, he walked out, completely ignoring Takuchi's complaints. When Takuchi tried holding Hirose's hand in the hallway, Nakamura walked between them, and when Hirose wanted to feed Takuchi, he'd fake a fall, spilling the chocolate drink on him. Nakamura figured these would be enough to keep him away, only for him to look up the next second and see them listening to music together. A gloomy Nakamura lost all hope, not knowing what else to do. He'd then get the idea that perhaps Hirose just let his friends act like this. So, he started imagining what it would be like in the future if he and Hirose became friends, fantasizing about how much they'd laugh together, walk under the rain, and Hirose sitting on his lap. Nakamura saw this as an opportunity. Mukai then approached Hirose and Takuchi, asking if they were dating. Takuchi would then point towards Nakamura's direction, and he wondered why they were staring at him.
assuming Takuchi was doing this to spite him. Little did he know that this was all Takuchi's strategy to just get Yuka's attention. Hirose insisted there had to be a better way. However, Takuchi was doing this because he heard Yuka loved nothing more than watching dudes flirt with each other. Oh my god, he's gay baiting to try to get at the foids? I heard that's an effective mating strategy. The internet told me so. And of course, everything you hear on the internet is true. Either way, Mukai and Hirose doubted this would work. But Takuchi believed his plan was working because Yuka was looking his way. Meanwhile, the girls just found it odd how close he and Hirose had been. Takuchi begged Hirose to just stick with the plan, at least until Yuka talked to him. But even if he caught Yuka's interest, there's no way it would be romantically. Somehow, Takuchi only realized this now. Where did he think this plan was gonna lead him? While Hirose was cheering him up, Nakamura, on the other hand, was still very jealous and furious. He got so fed up, he stood up from his seat aggressively, and at the same time, Takuchi stood, heading in his direction. He'd walked past Nakamura, approaching Yuka and confessing his feelings. He asked her out, and she actually agreed? No way, it really worked. His confession made her flush, but she only agreed on the condition that he'd flirt with more boys. Thanks to that, Hirose was in it for a lot more flirting than he signed up for. Oh man, they got a boy love max now. Even though Takuchi and Hirose weren't an item, Nakamura refused to let his guard down. He then noticed something seemed off in class today. Seeing that some of his classmates had different hair colors, he remembered it was dress code check week. The guidance counselors were really strict about it. The other day, they made a big deal of an undone shirt button. They even threatened the students with cleaning bathrooms for a month if they were caught again. Breaking the rules meant you'd get stuck cleaning the bathrooms or the gutters. But Nakamura didn't really get in trouble, since he was the type to follow the rules. When the teacher came in, he noticed Hirose and Omori weren't in class. Mukai mentioned they were having a meeting, which made them late. In the hallway, they were being held up by the guidance counselors. The female Karen counselor assumed Hirose dyed his hair, not believing it was his natural color. Hirose called her out for being extreme. He didn't see what the big deal was about his hair color. Thanks to that, the guidance counselors were riled up. Hirose was then ordered to dye his hair black by tomorrow. But he wasn't backing down, and asked them if they'd make a foreign student dye their hair black as well. His words only caused more trouble, as they sentenced him to baldness. Just as he was about to get his hair cut, Otogiri-sensei showed up, defending his student. As Hirose's homeroom teacher, he decided to take the responsibility of disciplining him. Taking Hirose into a class alone, his shouting left everyone else scared. It was so bad that the guidance counselor begged him to stop. With that settled, they returned to class. Getting inside the classroom, Hirose started laughing. It turned out that he and Otogiri were putting up an act. Otogiri-sensei was the really cool teacher. Hirose felt teachers like him were awesome, and that made him consider becoming one. Meanwhile, Nakamura had a completely different understanding of the situation and started to freak out. Later on, Hirose would hang around Otogiri-sensei a lot more. It only served to heighten Nakamura's fears. Back at home, he'd already concluded that Hirose was in love with their homeroom teacher. He'd come across a protein shake ad and got an idea. If he just got big muscles, he believed Hirose would be all over him. So his plan was to get ripped. He'd take quite a number of protein shakes, believing that was all he needed. When he got to school, those supplements were trying to find their way back up. Otogiri asked him a question, but he couldn't even answer. Seeing how pale he looked, he then asked Nakamura to visit the nurse's office. Surprisingly, Hirose offered to go with him, but only because he was the class health rep. Unable to hold it in any longer, Nakamura darted to the toilet, throwing up all he drank. Hirose would comfort him, rubbing his back. His touch felt so warm and gentle that Nakamura felt he was in paradise for a moment. Upon getting to the infirmary, no one was there. While Nakamura lay in bed, Hirose stayed with him. Nakamura thought he was such an angel. He felt so pathetic for not being able to handle a protein shake. Hours later, while he was asleep, he was suddenly woken up by the sound of Otogiri's voice. On the other side of the curtain, he and Hirose were happily chatting. Hirose asked for his line ID, and Otogiri teased him, saying that'd be cute if he were a girl. Meanwhile, Nakamura was regretting each passing second as they talked. He questioned if they were an item, but refused to believe it. Otogiri then said, "I need to suck cheeks." From his gesture, he was talking about smoking. Nevertheless, Nakamura had already assumed the worst, and when Hirose said he could handle it, Nakamura only felt worse. At this point, he just wanted to die. Otogiri then asked Hirose if he decided where to go for next week's extracurricular lesson. Hearing that, Nakamura jumped to his feet. With the extracurricular lessons, he still had hope to recover from this and turn this crappy situation around. While Nakamura sat in class, Hirose would show up behind him, but ran past towards the teacher. Nakamura tried calling him back. However, it was no use. Everyone would suddenly become dark, and Nakamura's pet octopus showed up by the window, telling him in a horrifying voice that he was nothing but an NPC to Hirose. Nakamura was then woken up from that nightmare by Otogiri-sensei. Getting off the bus, he saw Hirose and Otogiri were happily chatting together. At that moment, Nakamura decided on this field trip, he'd become friends with Hirose no matter what. The point of this trip was to learn how modern Japan developed. While Otogiri-sensei addressed the students, Nakamura stared at Hirose from inside the crowd. Then, Otogiri told them they were free to do what they wanted and go wherever they wanted to go. They'd split up into groups, and Nakamura was thrilled to be in the same group as his crush. Suddenly, one of his classmates tossed a camera at him, asking him to handle all the pictures. So he used that chance to take as many pictures of Hirose as he could. Everyone looked at him like he was a creep. Heading over to a fortune stand, Nakamura's fortune read that he'd have terribly bad luck, especially with romance. It kicked off with someone bumping into him, causing him to slam his head into the wall. Nakamura refused to let that bother him though. Shortly after, he tried to talk to Hirose, but that bad fortune flashed in his mind. Hirose would suddenly go off with some other classmates. Nakamura kept trying to keep up, and the same thing kept happening to him. Following that, he tried to take a picture but couldn't even bring himself to do it this time. After some time, most of his group members left to find somewhere to eat, leaving just Hirose and Umori together. Nakamura didn't expect Hirose to ask him where he wanted to go. At that moment, he couldn't think of anything to say. Seeing Otogiri-sensei, Hirose rushed to him, asking where he planned to eat lunch. They'd go to a restaurant, and Hirose asked Otogiri why he didn't eat with the other teachers. He apparently cherished his alone time. As for why he became a teacher, he told them it was because he liked kids. After their meal, Otogiri paid for everything, but told his students not to let anyone know. Leaving the restaurant, he took out a cigarette, and the others watched as he puffed smoke into the air. Hirose looked particularly intrigued. However, Otogiri made it clear he wasn't going to give him one. He went through a wild phase when he was young, and if he had a teacher to save him back then, maybe he could have turned out different. That made him want to become that kind of teacher. Walking back, Nakamura couldn't stop thinking about how cool Otogiri looked back there. Coming across an aquarium signboard, he got excited. When Hirose came by to see what he was looking at, Nakamura got a little shy. Although the aquarium was a bit expensive, he still went by himself to check it out. When he got inside, he took his time, admiring all the fish he saw. Of course, he was more excited to see an octopus. He thought the creature was so cute, and it didn't mind staring back at him. Thinking back to how cool Otogiri looked, Nakamura understood why Hirose looked up to him. Meanwhile, he was just spinning his wheels. He wished Hirose had come with him. He felt like an idiot making no progress. That's when Hirose showed up next to him. Flustered, Nakamura wondered why he was here. Otogiri had gone shopping for souvenirs, so Hirose decided to come here. He mentioned that aquariums like these were quite uncommon, and he also spoke about how octopuses liked hiding in pots. Getting a bit more comfortable, Nakamura told him how smart octopuses were. They could even open jars from the inside. It was obvious he liked them, but people usually called him weird for liking octopuses. Hirose didn't think it was weird though. To him, it was the same as liking cats or dogs. He told Nakamura to ignore people who said things like that. As they continued looking around the aquarium, Nakamura wondered what to do. He really liked Hirose. Matter of fact, he loved him. He was glad to have fallen in love with him. Sitting together, Hirose told Nakamura he was glad that Takuchi ditched them. Sometimes, he'd rather be alone. Though most of the time he was having fun, there were times the vibes felt off to him. Takuchi was always making dirty jokes or talking about girls. Hirose couldn't keep up, but it wasn't like he had to be perfect. He figured it was best to tell Takuchi if he didn't like it. Feeling guilty about complaining, Hirose apologized. Nakamura was the first person he had told about this, and that left Nakamura quite shocked. Since they still had plenty of time left, Hirose asked where they should go next. Nakamura was fine with anywhere. They'd end up spending their time wandering all around the town. Stopping to gaze at the sea, Nakamura asked if Hirose preferred the sea or the mountains. With the sea in front of them, Hirose preferred this at the moment. As they enjoyed the cool breeze, Nakamura stared at Hirose. Noticing his eyes, Hirose walked closer, reaching for Nakamura's hair. He told Nakamura he'd look cooler if he cut his bangs. And blushing hard, Nakamura yelled that he definitely cut it. The whole moment felt like a dream to him. He was so happy and wished things could stay like this forever. Their classmates walked by, and Takuchi called out to Hirose, asking him to come to the ferry with them. Hirose declined at first, but after Takuchi told him they needed one more person for a discount, he decided to go. And just like that, Nakamura's moment with Hirose was over. He wished it didn't have to end so soon. With desperation, he ran to Hirose, grabbing him and letting him know that he didn't have to force himself to go. And following his words, Hirose told Takuchi that he changed his mind, so they all left without him. Thanks to that, Nakamura got the chance to spend more time with him. He then gave Hirose a wrapped present, and opening it, Hirose was happy to see the crab keychain. Nakamura got it for him after hearing how much he liked crabs. Feeling shy, Nakamura said he wanted to be friends with him for a while, and now, he finally had the courage to ask Hirose to be his friend. Hirose didn't answer. Instead, he ran to Otogiri, asking if he had a camera. Nakamura fell to his knees, his heart completely shattered. But Hirose returned, grabbing him up. As Otogiri took their picture, Hirose went, "I thought we were already friends." Hearing that, Nakamura's spirit was lifted. On the last day of the semester, two girls were headed to the science room to clean up. One of them said there were rumors about the science room being haunted, making the other scared. When they got there, she opened the door, shocked to see a dark figure lurking in the shadows. The girl believed it had to be her imagination, but when she opened the door again, the figure popped up in their faces, causing them to run away in fear. The ghost turned out to be Nakamura, however. At the sound of the bell, Otogiri's students were beyond thrilled. School was over, and summer break was finally here. Summer was packed with events for friends, like festivals and the beach. Nakamura couldn't stop smiling just thinking about how Hirose called him his friend. This meant they could go to all those events together. He decided to invite Hirose to a cafe so they could make plans. But before he could get the chance, Hirose left class with Umori. Nakamura then decided he'd stop by the bookstore. There was a new volume of Lovable Lunches out today, and he was thrilled about it. On his way, he overheard some students talking about a ghost in the science room, but he didn't think much of it. Suddenly, Nakamura was captured and tied up by Reiko and her friends. They tossed him into a creepy room, and when the bag came off, he recognized her as the cult recruiter, but she reminded him that she was the president of the occult horror club. As for why she kidnapped him, Reiko needed Nakamura's help. Her club members would start performing a weird ritual, and she told him that he was needed for a little spot of sacrificing. The next second, he saw himself being tied to a cross. They'd light up candles and continue the incantations to summon a demon from hell. Then, the markings on the ground lit up. Tamura, the president of the Drama AV Club, would burst into the room, interrupting their ritual. He said he was searching for a subject for this summer's high school film contest. He planned on covering the school's current 7 wonders. Since he was looking for leads, he came to video them. Reiko pointed out that his club was about to be disbanded, just like hers. Tamura went ahead with the video, then noticed the lights on the ground were LED tape from the 100 yen shop. Upon seeing Nakamura, Tamura lit up with joy and asked if he wanted to be in a film. Nakamura's sinister aura was perfect for the character he was envisioning. Nakamura didn't get a chance to answer before Tamura decided to just record him. Go and Tamura would start fighting over him. But all Nakamura wanted to do was just go to the bookstore. Umori, along with his other classmates, all came along for the filming. Seeing Nakamura tied up, Hirose was shocked and asked if he was starring in it as well. Apparently, Umori was also a part of the Drama AV Club, and he managed to convince his classmates to act. The only thing they were missing was someone to play the ghost. That's when Tamura said that Nakamura would be the ghost. Just looking at him gave Tamura inspiration, though he and Reiko were still fighting over Nakamura. However, Hirose looked very excited, seeing that Nakamura was the star of the show. Seeing that sparkle in his eyes was just enough for Nakamura to agree. At night, they all gathered in front of the school. Reiko tagged along just to see how this film would turn out. Tamura then explained the film was about a group of students who came to a school at night to test their courage. And at some point, a real ghost joined their group. He was thinking of making it a mockumentary, a fictional piece presented like a documentary. Since none of them were real actors, capturing their candid reactions instead of forcing them to act would give it a realism that would resonate with the audience. As they went inside, Umori feared what would happen if someone found out they were sneaking into school at night. But Tamura assured him no one would find out. With everywhere being pitch black, some were nervous, while others, such as Yuka, sounded excited. Hirose mentioned they were filming locations from school ghost stories, so Reiko went ahead to talk about them. There was Hanako-san of the 3rd stall on the 3rd floor, a portrait of a past principal with glowing eyes, and a stair-landing mirror that dragged people into another dimension. In front of the principal's office, Umori started setting up the equipment. Suddenly, they'd hear an ominous sound coming from down the hallway. As a dark figure poked its head out from the corner, everyone ran for it, leaving Omori to fend for himself. However, he'd be the first one the ghost confronted. Takuchi had gotten away far enough before realizing that it wasn't Yuka he was holding, but actually Mukai. When they argued about Takuchi's dating life, The ghost caught up to them. Meanwhile, Hifumi and the other girls hid in the ladies' restroom. The girl started teasing her about how she'd prefer to be with Nakamura. Hifumi couldn't deny it, but now wasn't the time for that. Yuka then realized this was Hanako's bathroom. Reiko popped out of one of the stalls, confirming what she said. Then, she told him that to summon Hanako-san, one needed to knock 3 times on the door of the 3rd stall and say, "Hanako, let's play." That's totally wrong, by the way. Yuka, being the crazy one, decided to give it a try. There was no response. Or so they thought. A ghost appeared behind them, though Yuka was the only one unfazed. Hirose and Nakamura happened to be together in front of the science room. As they went inside, Hirose sounded very scared. So, they quickly left. Unlike him, Nakamura didn't get scared easily. He was okay with things like haunted houses, and even horror movies didn't scare him as well. Hirose tried to play the tough guy too. Nakamura decided to go ahead just to tease him. Upon hearing Hirose's scared voice, he was certain Hirose was a scaredy cat. Refusing to be left alone, Hirose held on to Nakamura's belt. Nakamura was flush, and right now, he wouldn't mind if Hirose went ahead and hugged him. While he fantasized about it, the wind howled, making Hirose even more frightened. He held onto Nakamura's belt tightly, nearly choking the life out of his stomach. Out of nowhere, Tamura appeared in front of them. He'd been filming them since they were in the science room, and they had no idea. Nakamura was relieved that he didn't get caught trying to hold Hirose's hand, though he wished he really did. He didn't expect Hirose to hold his hand. Nakamura was freaking out on the inside. Then, the sound from earlier started echoing through the halls again. Tamura stuck out his camera. However, a bright light blinded them. It turned out to be their teachers, Otogiri and Kaoru. The students were lucky they were the ones on patrol. If not, they would have been suspended. In the end, it wasn't a ghost making that sound, but instead Kaoru tapping his flashlight whenever the light went out. He demanded written apologies from all of them tomorrow, and he'd be seizing Tamura's film. While Nakamura was still flustered about Hirose holding his hand, Hirose let go of him at that moment and followed the others. Surprisingly, it wasn't actually Hirose who was holding his hand. And he was certain it was a ghost. After school, Hirose casually ditches Takuchi, saying he already has plans with someone else. Those plans, of course, being with Nakamura. He walks right up to him, ready to head home together like it's the most natural thing in the world. The two walk side by side, chatting and laughing without a care, completely in their own little bubble. When they finally reach the point where they have to part ways, Hirose suddenly grabs Nakamura and points out that no one else is around. Taking advantage of the moment, he leans in and they kiss. But just as it starts getting a little too intense for Nakamura to handle, he wakes up. Turns out, the only thing actually kissing him was Ichan, who is currently glued to his face like it's a life mission. Not exactly the dream ending he had in mind, but at least now he knows where the kiss came from. Back at school, Nakamura can't help but admire Hirose all over again in the new semester. Even after spending an entire summer as friends, nothing major really happened between them. Still, Nakamura isn't worried. They are officially friends now, which means things will naturally get closer, right? In fact, he's fully convinced that his dream from this morning was basically a prophecy. At this point, that kiss is just a matter of time. Feeling bold, he decides to go talk to Hirose. He walks up to his desk, stares at him awkwardly, and manages to squeeze out a single, painfully stiff "Yo." And that's it. Immediately overwhelmed with embarrassment, Nakamura retreats to the back of the classroom and practically slams his head into the floor in shame, while absolutely no one notices or cares. Just as he's trying to recover, Umori shows up and hands Hirose a CD he'd mentioned before. The sight alone fills Nakamura with quiet, simmering rage. He remembers Umori being just as close to Hirose during the test of courage, and starts questioning whether friendships that go all the way back to grade school are just unbeatable. As if that wasn't enough, right after Umori leaves, another student shows up asking to borrow Hirose's PE uniform. During break, Nakamura ends up being the last one in the classroom and is told to lock up. That same student returns the uniform and asks Nakamura to place it on Hirose's desk. Alone with it, Nakamura stares, and then immediately starts fighting an internal battle. He is absolutely losing. Before he knows it, he gives in and sniffs the uniform, only to recoil and complain about how sweaty it smells. Which raises the very obvious question. What exactly was he expecting? Unfortunately, the damage is already done. Even after class resumes, Nakamura can't stop thinking about it. The idea that Hirose could produce such a strong, manly scent sends his imagination into overdrive. He starts wondering if Hirose has some kind of wild side. And before long, he's fully spiraling into a fantasy where he's pinned against a wall by him. Then, reality hits. A towering, muscular guy named Todoroki shows up to retrieve his uniform from Hirose. Yes, his uniform. The very same one Nakamura had just sniffed. The moment the truth sinks in, Nakamoto's entire world collapses and he drops on the spot. Completely drenched in sweat, he is tended to by Todoroki, who, in a twist of fate, wipes him down with the same uniform and carries him to the infirmary. After leaving the infirmary, Nakamura is in full panic mode. If anyone finds out what he did, his life is over. He's convinced he'll be labeled a creep, possibly arrested, and worst of all, Hirose would hate him right then and there. He vows to never, ever do something like that again. As if on cue, Hirose walks up to him, noticing how pale he still looks, and gently offers to walk him home. Nakamura can barely process what he just heard. He replays the words in his head like a broken record, and suddenly, he's on cloud 9. Of course, he immediately accepts. On their way out, Hirose jokingly teases him, saying he looks fine enough to go home alone now. But it's clearly just that. A joke. At the school gate, they run into Ko, who's been waiting for Hirose. Apparently, Hirose completely forgot they had plans to grab food together. Ko is an old friend from middle school, and Hirose promises to make it up to him next week. Instead, he suggests they all walk home together. Nakamura agrees, but looks like his soul has just left his body. As they walk, Hirose casually goes on about how amazing Ko is. Smart, athletic, basically perfect in every way. And just when Nakamura thinks it couldn't get worse, someone else approaches to tell Hirose that the committee advisor is looking for him, pulling him away yet again. This is a placeholder. As Hirose leaves, Nakamura and Ko are left standing there together in painfully awkward silence. The air between them is so stiff, it might as well be a brick wall, and Nakamura hates every second of it. Sneaking a glance, he can't help but notice that Ko is actually annoyingly handsome, and tall, too, just to make things worse. Trying to fill the silence, Ko admits that he's pretty shy himself, but Hirose has always been friendly with him. They used to hang out a lot back in middle school. Thinking about their canceled plans, Ko casually mentions that he wishes he had gone to Hoshimi High instead. Nakamura, on the other hand, is silently thanking fate that Ko didn't, because his chances would have dropped straight to 0. Curious, Nakamura asks what Hirose was like back in middle school. Instantly, Ko lights up, his eyes practically sparkling as he describes a smaller, short-haired version of Hirose. Nakamura is already dying to see it, and luckily, Ko just happened to have photos. The moment he sees them, Nakamura's completely thrown off. Hirose looks unbelievably cute, like dangerously cute, and Ko doesn't stop there. He pulls out even more pictures, each one somehow making Hirose look even purer than the last. But that's when Nakamura starts to get suspicious. Why does this guy have so many pictures of Hirose? Ko casually explains that they actually weren't that close. He'd message Hirose almost every day, 6 times a week, but about 80% of those messages were ignored. Even when he tried visiting Hirose's regular convenience store, he barely ever ran into him. Then, as if that wasn't enough, Ko proudly shows off a collection of erasers Hirose used to play with in class. At that point, Nakamura mentally takes a step back. Wanting to keep Hirose's little creations? Sure, understandable. But this is a whole different level. In Nakamura's eyes, Ko has officially crossed into full-on pervert territory. And there's no way he's letting someone like that get any closer to Hirose. So naturally, Nakamura fires back. He starts boasting about how close he and Hirose are, talking about how they chat all the time, cook together, and even take down roaches side by side like it's some kind of bonding activity. Hearing this, Ko immediately demands his photos back. Nakamura refuses, still flipping through them like he owns the collection now. After a brief struggle, Nakamura proposes a trade, offering up a photo of him and Hirose from their trip to Chinatown. Then, he starts bragging about it. A lot. Enough to slowly chip away at Ko's patience. But Ko isn't about to lose. He retaliates by pulling out even older photos of Hirose from grade school. Refusing to be outdone, Nakamura whips out the manga featuring him and Hirose, only for Ko to look completely unimpressed. And just like that, the two of them spiral into an all-out rivalry, going back and forth, each trying to one-up the other with memories and proof of their connection to Hirose. This continues for hours. By the time evening rolls around, Nakamura is clearly in the lead. Desperate, Ko reveals his final trump card, Hirose's middle school PE uniform. Yes, he just casually admits he forgot to return it after borrowing it back then. At this point, even Nakamura has to pause and question things. But instead of backing down, he sees an opportunity. Pretending to spot Hirose nearby, he points behind Ko. The moment Ko turns to look, Nakamura snatches the uniform and bolts. Now in possession of the real prize, he immediately takes a sniff, sending Ko into an absolute panic as he chases after him. The two wrestle over the uniform like their lives depend on it, tugging back and forth until suddenly there's a ripping sound. They freeze. Slowly, they look down, only to see the label on the uniform read Todoroki, silence. When Hirose finally returns, he finds both Nakamura and Ko on their knees, completely defeated, their souls practically leaving their bodies. If only Hirose learned to return the stuff he borrowed. As their school prepares for the cultural festival, Nakamura rushes to class and overhears Hirose, along with some other people talking. He opens the door, but is bummed out to see that Hirose isn't the one dressed as a butler. What pisses him off even more is the fact that he has to pour drinks. But when Hirose brings some extra items, his mood lightens up. If he gets to spend time with Hirose, Nakamura doesn't mind at all. Giggling to himself, he fantasizes about the two of them enjoying the festival together. Sadly for him, Hirose is in a rush to leave after seeing the time, so he gives Nakamura the list of items he counted and steps out, leaving him devastated. During his break, Nakamura sees Hirose entering a class and wonders if he's checking out the festival with someone else. Before he can take a step forward, Reiko grabs him from behind. Her club is holding a seance, but they have no one to help with the demonstration. Of course, Nakamura wasn't interested, so she forcefully kidnaps him with the help of her minions. When they're done making use of him, Reiko gives him magical prayer beads. It's a super special rosary for better wealth, health, and love, and she promises that it's legit. Nakamura puts on the beads and manages to catch sight of Hirose again. Chasing after him, he comes across a large model of an octopus in the art club. That's where he meets Hifumi, who is helping out the club. Seeing her drawings, he compliments them, making her blush. As she offers to draw him, he gets an idea. He ends up getting her to draw a portrait of Hirose, which he plans to frame at home. Once again, he sees Hirose, and before he can get close, he's blocked by a long line of people ordering Todoroki's yakisoba. Upon seeing Nakamura, Todoroki gives him a free plate. While he's enjoying his lunch, someone in a bear costume walks up to him creepily and gives him a flyer for the Starry Night event that the drama club is having. Since he likes movies and plays, Nakamura excitedly goes to check it out. On his way, he bumps into a pretty-looking lady who gets its heart racing. Looking closer, he realizes that she isn't Hirose. To think an adult woman could make his heart race, it makes him wonder if he's bi. Then again, the resemblance between the lady and Hirose is uncanny. Once again, he nearly gets hit by all the items Tamura is throwing around. One of his actors happens to be sick, which is making him crash out. Just as he hoped for a replacement, Nakamura came into his line of sight. Without wasting time, Nakamura tries to leave, ignoring Tamura's attempts at recruiting him. Frustrated, Tamura strangles him. Hifumi then comes along, apologizing for canceling. Turns out, she's the one who's sick. Seeing this situation, Nakamura then agrees to fill in for her as his way of thanking her for the drawing. Once they get backstage, Tamura tells him he's playing the role of a villager who's collapsed in the street. Because of that, Nakamura has to wear raggedy clothes, but his reward is dying in the arms of the most beautiful woman in the country. Seeing the crowd makes him nervous. His only lines are yes, no, and thank you. He can't screw this up, right? Yet, Nakamura feels it's silly to think someone as forgettable as him could act in a play, but Tamura assures him that he'll be fine. Although he claims he isn't interested in women, Nakamura is speechless when his eyes meet the beautiful lady from earlier. Her warm greeting leaves his heart pounding heavy in his chest. Nakamura tries to remind himself that he's in love with Hirose. As the play starts and the lady appears on stage, those in the audience are captivated by her beauty. Even Nakamura thinks she's cute. In the play, the girl's name is Hirosen, a girl from the village. Her heart is as gentle as starlight. Nakamura then gets on stage and feels embarrassed from falling. Hirosen goes to check on him, and he's stunned by her features. Her big eyes and dark brows look just like Hirose's. At that moment, Nakamura realized that it's actually him. As for the lady he saw earlier, she happens to be Hirose's sister, who's rooting for her brother from the crowd. Her screaming makes Hirose angry, but he pushes on with the play. Nakamura follows his lines, and when the big moment comes, he actually blacks out as Hirose embraces him. Bro's literally in heaven. After the play, Hirose complains about his sister shouting from the crowd. He still feels embarrassed by it. Umori also apologizes for making him fill in because they were short on members. Apparently, Hirose has been helping them since this morning. To reward him for his efforts, his sister offers to buy drinks for everyone. Meanwhile, Nakamura is having a hard time understanding whether he actually has a thing for women or if it was simply because of the resemblance to Hirose. While he's wallowing in his thoughts, Hirose comes along and gives him a drink. Thinking of everything today that led up to this, Nakamura admits this isn't so bad every once in a while. And who knows? Maybe it's thanks to the special prayer beads he got. With one more day of exams left, Otagiri tells his students that he worked really hard on their upcoming math test tomorrow. Knowing that he sucks at math, Nakamura decides to go study in the library. Getting there, he sees the place is packed and there's no free table. Luckily, Hirose calls him over, giving Nakamura the chance to sit next to him. Being so close to Hirose, he goes flush, and then says a word Hirose has never heard before, so Hirose figures he's good at modern Japanese and asks Nakamura to teach him. Nakamura couldn't believe his luck. With Hirose next to him, he could barely focus on studying without staring at him. Takuchi then gets hungry, so they agree to go to a family restaurant, and surprisingly, Nakamura is taken along. At the restaurant, he's left clueless when they start talking about a show called Detective Body Kata. Nakamura pretends to know it, but he quickly notes it down so he can check it out later. He writes down everything they're talking about, including the fact that Hirose and Omori are going to a concert later. Jealousy eats him up, because he wants to be in Omori's shoes right now. Hirose then asks if he has a favorite song, and Nakamura replies that he listens to everything. Hirose says he's into a band called Aquapet, and asks Nakamura if he knows about them. But it's obvious Nakamura has no clue. Hirose then shows him a new game called Smash Fighter, and he writes that in his notes as well. Seeing Nakamura's empty cup, Hirose decides to go get a drink and asks if he wants anything, but his friends also ask him to help refill their drinks. So, Nakamura goes along with Hirose. While refilling the drinks, he feels bad for not knowing much about him. Then, Hirose notices that he drinks coffee, but it's not really his thing. His sister apparently says it's good with hot chocolate, so Nakamura tries it out, and it tastes pretty nice. He then tells Hirose that he'd probably be able to drink like this. Deciding to pull a prank, Hirose puts coffee in Takuchi's cola. Nakamura takes note of that, and they return to the table. Looking at his notes, he's glad to have learned so much about Hirose today. As Takuchi takes a sip of his drink, he immediately spits out everything on Nakamura, soaking both him and his notes. Just like that, all the notes about Hirose are gone. On another day, while on the train, Nakamura giggles to himself while watching a trailer for his favorite BL. After so long, the day has finally come for the Lovable Lunch's anime greenlighting autograph session. Likewise, Hifumi and her friends are here to enjoy the event as well. With plenty of time before the signing, they head over to the Collaboration Cafe, and the menu there is recreated from the show. Being made to order for everyone, Hifumi is flustered as she tells the waitress what they all want. She's grateful to her friends for coming with her. When the food comes, it looks so wonderful and the portions are big, and they have to take a lot of pictures before eating. Elsewhere, Nakamura is taking pictures of the bookstore. With the show being greenlit, he'll get to see their awakening to new flavors animated. Staring at the manga cover, he imagines the characters to be himself and Hirose. He gets caught making a kissy face while lost in his fantasy. Shortly after, he sees Hifumi and her friends. Just as she turns in his direction, he disappears, hiding behind a standboard cutout. Her friends then leave, and she comes around the cutout he's hiding behind. Nakamura's shocked, seeing her ticket to the autograph session. Scared to show his face, he uses a handkerchief to disguise himself while waiting in line for the autograph, but a security guard asks him to take it off before entering, and also requests for his ID. In the middle of that, Hifumi immediately recognizes him from his stature and eyes. Though he feels embarrassed, she sounds very excited to see him. Nakamura comes clean, confessing he loves Lovable Lunches. But she already knew that. He read it at school sometimes, so she figured he liked it. When she asks about his favorite storyline, Nakamura says it's probably Taku and Makunouchi's awakening to new flavors. And that happens to be Hifumi's favorite as well. As the autograph session starts, Hifumi brings out a letter where she wrote down everything she wanted to say. It's such a good idea, but also one Nakamura didn't think of. Not only that, she also brought a gift, and it makes Nakamura feel devastated for not bringing anything. As it slowly gets to their turn, he has trouble thinking of what to talk about. When Nakamura's turn is finally here, he nervously walks up to the author, yelling that he loves Lovable Lunches. He mentions that Taku is cute, and the author is glad to hear it, considering he also likes Taku. Nakamura gets a drawing of Taku and words of encouragement before he leaves, making him feel elated. While Hifumi is glad to have spent some time with him, Nakamura stares at the drawing on the manga, promising himself to write a letter next time. Alright, another update to this series in the books. Only 3 more episodes until it's over. Hopefully, Nakamura makes some legitimate progress towards Hirose by then. Subscribe for more BL, but for now, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy Tea. I'll see you all in the next one.